Hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to look at lemansvirtual, and no, not the controversies that surrounded it, which were, well, pretty crazy. We're going to look at qualifying and my best qualifying lap from the session, which gave me P7 overall, so it was a solid lap. But the most concerning thing, obviously I aim to be on pole and to win in everything I do, but the most concerning thing from this particular session was I was 1.4 seconds off pole position, which was set by Josh Rogers in the Porsche Commander car. That's what we're going to look at, how I was so far off. So this is an onboard of my pole lap. I was not on pole, I was 7th, my qualifying lap, and you can see I had a very compromised beginning to the lap because there was so much traffic in the forward chicanes. I had to sacrifice getting a good run up on the start-finish straight. So not the ideal start to the lap. Overall, I think it only cost me about 1/10 of a second, so it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the 1.4 second delta I was off to pole. But going into turn 1 then, first gear, short shift to second for T2, or T3, whatever way you look at it. It was a good first section of the lap. I was pretty happy. I was up on my delta. Going into this fast left, turn 4, in third gear, late apex, and then you pin the throttle as soon as you can. I'm TC0 through that section, and here as well, Tetra Rouge, 4th gear, a little lift, and then you're back on the throttle really hard. You can run a lot of the exit curb as well. I think if you go beyond the exit curb, it's an invalidation, so you have to be careful. But sector 1 was solid. I mean, you can see there wasn't any major mistakes, and it was fairly on the limit. Going into the first of 2 chicanes on the Mulsanne, braking at about 100 meters, down to third gear, and then down to second for the left. You can see I missed the apex slightly on the right, which compromised the left, and therefore the exit wouldn't have been as good as it could have been. But it wasn't bad. You know, if I really hooked up the right, the left would have been nicer, but I'd say there was a 1/10 and a half there in driving, which, yeah, not ideal, but not the end of the world. And I know in our factor in the qualifying session that was 30 minutes long, the grip gets better and better as you go through the session, so I knew this lap was going to be quicker even if I made mistakes. So again, we didn't hook the curb on the left on the entry there. Second gear, that chicane like the first one, and that second chicane was okay. The line was okay. We missed the curb slightly on the left, but overall, yeah, there wasn't too much time there. So going into Mulsanne corner, then approaching it, we're looking for the 100-meter board. You brake super late and you try and keep the car straight on braking so you don't lock up. You go down the gears as quickly as possible. What they've introduced this year though is downshift protection in these cars, which they didn't have that last year, so it's harder to slow the car down, in combination with the fact they've removed ABS this year as well, so it's very easy to lock up. So you've got to be careful, but at the same time you have to really push the braking and the downshift to get the car stopped quickly. Obviously it's qualifying, you do need to push the limit. And then approaching Indianapolis, then a really fast right followed by a 90 left, so it's a tricky section. You try and sort of square off the right so you get a really good run out of this left, which we seem to do quite well. Second gear into Arnage, first gear, late apex, kind of just pivot the car on a really tight point so you get a good exit. And yeah, so far the lap, apart from the first chicane on the Mulsanne, has been very solid, I think. Approaching the Porsche curves, which is a tricky section, followed by the chicanes, which is the hardest point on the track to get right. So you sort of blend off the throttle in qualifying, 5th gear on the right, hold 5th into this left, flat out the whole way, flat through this left as well, and then you flick the car in, down to 4th, a little lift, and you get back on the power. You're on the power pretty much throughout this whole section, apart from a little lift on the final Porsche curve there, because you can run wide and get an off track, which, yeah, I mean, you don't want that in qualifying, given there's so little running, or so little runs. Into the forward chicanes, 3rd, and then 2nd for the right. You hold 2nd through this bit. We get a little bit of a tank slapper because the curb sort of upset the car, so that wasn't ideal. A little bit of time lost there, so that would have been maybe another 10th. And you can see there we're P7, so every gap until P2, so Team Redline, so what are we there? We're 7/10 off P2, but then there's a further 7/10 from P2 to P1, meaning we're 1.4 seconds off pole. So I mean, I can see how the Redline car got that time. I can see how we're 7/10 off. But the question is, how are we 1.4 seconds off pole? And you can see here, this is my lap versus Porsche Coander's lap, the pole time. You can see the exit they get out of turn 2 or turn 3 there was just ridiculous. I didn't understand that. When I first saw that, that was the main thing for me. How on earth did they just gain 3/10 on me in that one exit? And in sector 1 alone, we're 4.5 tenths off that car. which it just blows my mind. I mean, yes, there was probably a tenth in Sector 1 for me at most, but seeing 4.5 tenths, I don't know. I mean, clearly it's in the setup, and you know, it's a mixture of the package of, you know, the driver and the team nailing everything. The setup they had must have found something. Josh Rogers, we know, is one of the best sim racers in the world. He clearly nailed his lap, but I've just never seen anything like it, to be fair. And in the first chicane, we know from watching my onboard, I made a mistake there. Clearly there's time there, but when you get to this sort of distance in this comparison, it's hard to see where he's gaining. You can see there he used more curb on the entry of the second chicane as well, so again, him hooking up that corner and me not, he would have gained a bit of time there. But the gap is so big already, like, it blows my mind. And as I say, hard to compare the laps, really. And the replay wasn't in a good state, so I couldn't really look at his onboard. I could see what gears he was using. You can see there at Mulsanne corner, it looks like he outbroke himself a bit because he missed the right apex, and he sort of ran wide on the exit. But in Sector 2, he gained another 6 tenths, rendering me a second off, basically, or 1.1 seconds off going into Sector 3 already, which just is crazy. But yeah, even with him outbreaking himself at Mulsanne corner, he still gains time overall, which is interesting. And then going into Indianapolis, then it's so hard to compare, but I only lost 3 tenths in Sector 3. So the most technical, longest sector, I lost only 3 tenths, which when you're 1.4 seconds off, is not that much. But to lose 6 tenths in Sector 2 and then 4.5 tenths in Sector 3 is very, very, very strange. I mean, the thing is, I can speak for ourselves. We focused a lot on race practice, the race setup, the race strategy, different weather conditions, because it was scheduled to rain, dry, and then rain again. So we spent a lot of time looking at that, and we didn't spend a lot of time looking at qualifying. It's worth saying I only spent 2 days, really, looking at qualifying. It was only really me practicing it as well, because they were like, my team were like, right, James, you're going to do qualifying. So we knew that there was definitely a lack of preparation for quali. But even still, I mean, the red line time, the 21.2, I can understand it. You know, there was probably 3 or 4 tenths in my driving. There was probably 3 tenths in setup that we hadn't found. So overall, you could see that I was 7 tenths off red line. You could sort of see why. But then you get another 7 tenths, and it's just like, how? And you can see here the his line, to be fair, he sets up the exit better, don't get me wrong. But I thought I did a good turn 1, 2. And then he just sort of pulls on the exit. And then this next left, you can see he's just gaining everywhere, very progressively, but he's getting everywhere. And in Tetra Rouge, I looked at his onboard, and he was in 5th, I was in 4th. And that means, you know, he was able to carry more speed. But the fact is, I couldn't hold 5th through that corner, quali or race, because I'd understeer wide, because I'd be carrying too much speed. But the fact is, because he can do that, he can carry 10 Ks more through that Tetra Rouge corner. And you gain so much time from that, because you're gaining down the whole next straight, the Mulsanne as well. So through the chicanes, you know, it's fair to say I didn't nail them, but he does gain quite a bit through there. Clearly, because he was 6 tenths quicker than me in Sector 2, which isn't that big a sector. I know it's quite a long sector, but there's not many corners. You can see there again, yeah, as I said earlier, outbreaking himself at Mulsanne corner, but still, he gained so much on the entry and didn't really lose on the exit. He gains overall. And yeah, I mean, overall, just bamboozled, really. I mean, I think it's clear, watching his onboard and stuff, it looked like he was running stiffer roll bars than we were. We were running, you know, very, very soft roll bars. And I mean, fair play to them, you know, you got to kind of take your hat off to someone who can deliver a qualifying time like that. You know, to be 7 tenths clear of P2 in sim racing is insane. Everyone puts in so many hours, and everyone is at such a high level, usually, and it's the common theme in esports, is so close for that reason. So when you get a gap this big, it's mind-blowing, really, because everyone's put in so many hours and tweaked the setup. And as I say, this is an equal machinery series. There's no bop. You know, I can't say, oh, the Porsche was quicker than the Mercedes. We're literally all running the same car, an Orica LMP2. So yes, there's setup, and everyone has different setups, but yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. I mean, you've seen the onboard and the comparison a few times now. I can't quite figure it out. I'd love to hear what people in the comments think. You know, it clearly is a combination of driver, nailing the lap, setup, so many other factors, I guess. But I thought it was interesting to show you guys the video at the very least. I hope you enjoyed it. Do give it a thumbs up if you did. The other conclusion I suppose I could draw from it is just, you know, I'm washed. I mean, that is a very, very possible conclusion. But I'm trying to hope that I'm not washed, really. So, yeah, I need to sort of buck up my ideas and, yeah, do better. 1.4 seconds to pole is not good enough. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching another one of my videos. And I guess, yeah, until the next one, see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.